With the staggering number of people below the poverty line in Nigeria, with people rationing and contemplating which meal is the most important of the day, and settling for quantity rather than the quality of a meal, how has the coronavirus affected the livelihood of many Nigerians? How do we eradicate the hunger virus and ensure that the system has the best interest of its citizens at heart on matters relating to food security? Up next, we chat with Honorable Obong Linus Onofiok, Aisha Salis, and Honorable Kabir Takura on Rubbin Minds.
Hello, this is the Nigerian Symposium for Young and Emerging Leaders on Rubbin Minds. My name is Shea Awolo and I'll be your host. And we are going to be discussing the hunger virus. So, the hunger virus, a sad tale that's afflicting Nigerians around the world, around the country. We are having Nigerians saying they would prefer to die of hunger than to die of COVID. And sadly, it's as if this COVID pandemic just revealed a totally different thing, that Nigeria is not food secure. Whereas people say that Nigeria has a very strong food security. Madam, please, if you would, we know that you have vested interest in agriculture. Would like you to please elaborate a little bit about it and what you think should be means or ways to alleviate poverty alleviate this hunger virus in our country.
I think for me the answer is very simple. We have a vast amount of arable land in Nigeria and we have a large number of unemployed youths. So the thing is, how do we marry both into agriculture, have these youths get jobs, and also increase the food productivity in Nigeria? For me, I think that is just the simple solution to the problem.
So this solution, does it have an adverse effect on the cost of food in the country as well? Because sometimes the prices of our locally made food almost rivals the price of foods that are imported.
Yeah, the thing is, because there is not enough food, you've just highlighted the fact that there is food insecurity in Nigeria. So it has made food become gold. When you now have food in surplus, definitely, the forces of demand and supply will take place. There will be a fall and a crash in food in the country, but it's because there is no balance. We still do not have enough food to go around. So, of course, there will be high increase in food. But once that is being done, we've improved the agricultural sector, there's much more food in country, prices of food will definitely come crashing. It's not rocket science.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable Kabir, as regards these palliatives that were supposed to be distributed during the COVID pandemic, the first phase, as was stated, a number of people allege that they did not receive these palliatives, and if at all it got to their communities, it was ridiculously small. Say, for example, a full-story building, we're told to share a whole loaf of bread. I mean, even you had to think about it like, wow, what was that? Please, what are your contributions to this, please?
It's quite ridiculous, the way the distribution of the palliatives from the ministry went. Very unfortunate. In the House of Representatives, a lot of members acknowledge the fact that in their constituencies, those things, there was no impact, they didn't feel it at all. So this goes to tell you that it didn't go around as it is supposed to. The House of Representatives is one place where you can use to fill the pulse of everything and anything happening around the country. If it's supposed to be a national program, because of the spread, there's a representation from every part of this country. I'll give you an example with my constituency. I had ears to the ground and trying to make sure that we get to know or find out the extent to which the palliatives were distributed, but it's quite minimal. And that led the House to invite the minister in charge of the distribution of these palliatives and adopted a new strategy. So going forward, I believe there would be impact if at all the solutions we provided are going to be adopted.
Thank you very much for that. Honorable Luke, I'd like to ask, how do you think the government can amplify food distribution as well as rethink a strategy to ensure that people who truly are in need receive this assistance?
Instead of food distribution, we should talk about food sufficiency. And the challenge with food sufficiency in Nigeria is that, just like the challenge with every other sector in the country, is that we begin to look at Nigeria's problem, we begin to compartmentalize Nigeria's problem and begin to compartmentalize the solutions without looking at a holistic approach. Food sufficiency, we've we've forgotten to look at the issue of security. We have shortage in food today because of herders-farmers clash. Farmers have not been able to produce the way they ought to have produced. We have challenges today because we don't have access road for our farmers to evacuate their product from the farm to be able to take it to the market. We have challenges of food shortage today because farmers don't have the facility to have a storage facility to store whatsoever they produce. So perishable goods, after 1 or 2 days, they are gone. And the other one is that we have challenges today because some people go to the hinterland and then begin to buy this product at a giveaway price. So we should look at a holistic solution to the problem of food insecurity in Nigeria: road network, infrastructure development, security, and even input to farmers to be able to have sufficient and commercialized agriculture, away from agriculture to just feed the stomach. Agriculture as a way of life, agriculture as a business. That would make food sufficient for everyone. So food sharing is for abnormal situation like pandemic.
Okay, so technically what you're saying is a lack of basic infrastructure.
Yeah.
For example, good roads, security are part of the
Power. Yeah.
are part of the contributing factors to the lack of food distribution within the country.
Yes.
And let's bear in mind, you do know there's also the part where a certain demographic, about 82.9% of Nigerians live within the poverty ratio. Meaning that that's, I would say they live about below the $2 mark for living. So, and this thing happened also in the metropolitan states, for example, Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. We have a whole lot of people below this $2 life. And I was wondering, should this provision be prioritized? That's this 82.9%, according to the numbers. Are they, or should they be more prioritized?
Everything we do in the country is a stopgap. We are just doing a fire brigade approach to be able to address immediate solution and then do window dressing and forget about the very core of the problem. If to talk about the poverty, which has led to the issue of people being given palliative and then being given, if we have addressed the fundamentals, we don't come that way. What is the fundamentals? If we have the infrastructure working, we have our educational system working, if we have our power system working, then we would have been able to create jobs, and that would have been able to reduce the percentage in the percentage of people within the poverty bracket. But now, concerning the palliative that you are talking about, I'm trying to come to terms with the fact that we should be thinking of sharing food to able-bodied people. So that's why you see me going to the point of the very crux, the fundamentals, not looking at palliative. But if looking at palliative, yes, the issue is not the sharing of the palliative. The sincerity of those who are sharing the palliative is it's totally unacceptable to hear that while students were still at home, that they were still doing school feeding program. So how did you, if when students were in school, it was difficult to feed the students who were at school, pupils who were at school, how are you now going to go and feed those people in their parents' houses? How did you go about spending millions per day to be able to feed those people? So these are sincerity of purpose and patriotism. That would define whether the little thing Nigeria has provided, like palliative, like that food, will get to those who actually should get the benefit of it.
Wow. Thank you very much. Honorable Kabir, in recent times, we've seen visible shortages in food production, and this has enabled the increase in the prices of food. How do you think this can be fixed?
Well, Shay, once upon a time in this country, before all of us on this panel were born, the population of this country was about 80 million, thereabout. Nigeria used to be very food sufficient and even export food. And that was when our economy was based on agriculture before we found oil. So the moment we found oil turned us into lazy men and depended on the black gold money, which is easier to get than agriculture. So until we realized the need and the fact that we have to go back to agriculture, because one day oil will fade away. It's either it finishes or it becomes useless. We're heading there already. Countries are beginning to go green with their vehicles and say, no, okay, from 2020, 2022, we will no longer have vehicles that run on fuel. So it means that we'll be left without fuel. We can't eat fuel, but we have to eat food. There will never be an alternative to food. Yeah. So the only way to do that is to invest in agriculture and to invest heavily in young persons, to show young persons the need for that.
Okay, so with the closure of borders and the various countries placing restrictions on trade, do you think Nigeria will be able to survive these restrictions that are being put on trade, especially, well, agriculture is one of the things that I would say should be a revenue generating aspect for us. But do you think Nigeria will be able to survive these restrictions that are put on this trade?
You know, they say when it becomes obvious that you don't have a choice, then you have to do what is right. The closure of borders to the importation of rice has bring about some level of hardship in the country. But I must tell you, it has done more good to us than the hardship that we faced. Currently, paddy rice is almost scarce. That is because our local rice mills are going out there to buy, and they are producing around the clock to sell rice. Now, what does this mean? This means that next year, hopefully, there will be more people willing to go into farm to farm rice, so that there will be enough to feed the mills. Now, this has bring about a boost in the production of rice. As it is, I cannot confirm whether we are that self-sufficient with agriculture, but if this trend continues for another year or two, we would start to export conveniently.
I would like to get your take on how we can prepare to mitigate further disruptions and problems of food shortages that have arisen from this coronavirus.
I think first off, until youth, entrepreneurs, and even government see that agriculture is actually a gold mine that we have looked away from, until we actually take agriculture seriously, we'll still be coming back to the same discourse and the same problem. And I also think problems like this are inevitable, but I think we should take seriously databases. Because now we talked about palliatives. What are the indices of measuring who gets this palliative? Is there a database? How did it reach the grassroots? So until we have all these things properly done and arranged, we will still come back to the same problem.
There is a global projection of bad food conditions due to this coronavirus. What do you think the government should do to aid food production in Nigeria, and at what are the food levels in Nigeria now telling us?
I think it still boils down to the same thing we'll be saying. We should go back to agriculture, government to invest more into agriculture, and even at individual, everybody should, even entrepreneurs should see agriculture as a gold mine, because if that is not being done, we don't have much investment, we don't have businessmen vying in through the agricultural sector, because you don't just leave this alone for the government to tackle, right? So if other businessmen and entrepreneurs catch the gist that, okay, this is a viable business venture, then I think it will be a way out for every one of us.
Okay. And listening to everyone here, there's one thing that I think was said that was mutual, is the security in the land, because the clash between the farmer, herdsmen, and all that. So what measures are being put in place for these people's security, for farmers? I'll start with you, Ma'am.
For me, I really would not have anything positive, because I don't think the security level in this country has yielded. We've not done anything positive. The results are not impressive, in quote. We were tackling Boko Haram. We hadn't fully recovered from Boko Haram. Then we had people, this also, which he also raised, made people abandon their means and source of livelihood, which most of these people happen to be farmers, which also led to food shortages in the country. These people had to abandon their homes. They're homeless, and some of them are in IDP camps. We hadn't recovered from that. Today, to the present date, we're dealing with banditry. It's so sad. Like, the insecurity level in the country is really, really going bad. And without security, people would not even, especially farmers, because if you look at the areas of targets, they are mostly in remote areas where most of the occupation of the people targeted are farmers. So I really think a lot needs to be done with security in the country, agriculture as we speak.
Okay. Honorable Luke, could you point out 2 standing solutions that you believe would help aid Nigeria's growth as regards agriculture and the fight against this hunger virus?
They need to come together. Whatever central bank is doing, whatever the state governments are doing, whatever the federal government is doing, it has to be in sync. Let me give for instance. I came out here personally, I'm very interested in agriculture because right inside me I know that after my life in public service, apart from going to my law firm, I think I should be able to be in the farm in the evening and look at what is happening. And I wanted to even have a land here in Abuja, maybe around Abaji, going to Kogi State or Suleja. But I've been told that, any day you have to go to farm, you need to have about 4 or 5 policemen with arms so that I'll be secured. And I've been discouraged because that's what I wanted to do. My little salary, apart from giving to get people back at home. So what am I saying? Security is very key. How do we resolve one? Not only farmers herders clash. There's another one that happens which we might not know. Communal clashes because of land. People get killed. So how do we provide security? Then the other one is storage and processing. Agricultural value chain. We just produce and then we consume. Those are the things as time permits for me to suggest.
Honorable Kabir, I would say, what do you think are like 2 solutions that can aid with food distribution across the country? Security, I know he has mentioned something about security, but as regards transporting the food across the country, can you give us solutions to that?
Well, first off, I think it's very important we have like market hubs, commodity hubs, so to say. This would give farmers an avenue, an opportunity to sell their goods easily. Sometimes the issue of transportation to markets is actually a bane that contributes a lot to wastage. I have seen a global statistics that said globally we waste more than we consume, the whole world. So that's quite alarming, that's disturbing. So what am I saying about these commodity hubs? If there are hubs would have sort of marketing units where they would be the one responsible to go and meet you from your farm and take these things and take them to the commodity hubs and do the exchange and then give you back your money.
I'm guessing we have questions from our viewers at home on Zoom, so we'll take a couple of questions now, please. The final question from Dorcas Jimmy in Port Harcourt. If any of these remedial techniques or solutions to hunger virus are actually being implemented, then what is the success rate in percentage? Right. What's the success rate in percentage having been realized?
I would continue to emphasize on this until we are patriotic about what we do. You cannot begin to measure outcome if you are not sincere. It's not for government. You see, one of the things that pains me the most is maybe probably government come to sit on television and begin to read out facts and you know that those things are not right. And then probably sometimes you want to say something against it, they begin to bring party lines. Until we are sincere, until we are patriotic about what we do, we cannot begin to measure outcomes. So what do? We should begin to think about a new Nigeria. One, where everybody, whether you are a minister of labor, you are a minister of petroleum, you are a minister, or you are a DG of NEMA or whatsoever, you must cooperate to know that whatever you are doing is affecting other lives and sectors of individuals and the nation. But we see it as, sorry to say this, we see it as our own pot. Whatsoever we are given opportunity, whether we're in the legislature, we see the National Assembly in the House of Representatives, I'm a member of the House of Representatives, so I see it as my own pot. So I should be able to concentrate on that, my own pot, not thinking that what I do there is going to affect the lives of others. So until we do that, we should not talk about measuring the outcome. We are not where we should be in every aspect of Nigerian life. So there is need for a new thinking. That new thinking should be based on sincerity of purpose. What legacy do I want to leave for my son who is 11 years old? I might be able to have the resources today to be able to give him a good school. What is the guarantee that my privileged position is going to continue? So the only guarantee that I'm going to have security when I am not in this privileged position again, that my children or great-grandchildren or grandchildren are going to have access to education is for me to invest, to create an enabling environment, better school, better and secure environment, so that just like ordinary Nigerians, not because only I'm a privileged Nigerian, I can enjoy as ordinary Nigerians what other privileged Nigerians have done. So we shouldn't measure outcome when we have not put in enough effort at the foundation.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Kabir, do you have any, Honorable, do you have
I think
any?
he has said it all. There's actually no basis to start measuring the indices as it is now.
Yes.
I don't think we've done enough in terms of this. So like I told you, we've rejigged the whole apparatus, and I hope that the ministry in charge of this palliatives and interventions take those things into consideration going forward, and that is when we should be able to say that this is the level of success we've achieved so far. But when I started, the first thing I said is it's a shame the way that thing was handled, and I'm not at all, I don't want to be associated with that. It's actually not what Nigerians deserve. We deserve better, so that's it.
Thank you very much, Honorables. Thank you very much, Ma. And we'll be right back after this break for another segment. Do stay tuned. Thank you very much. Welcome back again. This is the Nigerian Symposium for Young and Emerging Leaders on Rubbin Minds. I'm the host, Shea Olo, with you today. And we're welcome back to the studio with three distinguished guests, namely Mr. Samson Itodo, E.D. Yaga. We have Miriam Laushi from MDP.
Hi.
And also Mr. Martin Obono from the Advisory Board of Amnesty International. Welcome to the show. And we'll be discussing making the government work, a topic that affects every single one of us, including myself in this room. Well, very much, all of us. So, the Nigerian government is heavily dependent on oil, as we all know. And I would believe that we're looking for means and ways to diversify so as not to keep ourselves in a landlock. But I'd like to throw this to you, Mr. Martin. How do you think, what ways do you think would help Nigeria diversify more properly? Do you think we should shut down importation of various goods to stir up innovation within the mines? Or what do you think should be done?
We need to begin to look at agriculture. We also need to look at education, because education actually forms one of the most, highest form of income for the United Kingdom itself, because of foreigners coming in to get education in the UK. So we need to begin to look at a lot of other aspects. I am not totally going to be in support of shutting down borders 100%, because we are over 200 million people. And so far, our production capacity for whatever we intend to produce to make ourselves diversify from other parts of, from oil to other parts of other sectors of the economy will be very, very difficult for us to sustain, because we may not be able to sustain the production capacity. However, there might be a face-by-face intervention. By now, we would have probably produced more doctors that would have been sent out, just the same way Cuba has done in time past. So we need to begin to look in to do that diversification. But before we do that, we need to begin to have the right kind of people who will put up a plan that will make sure that we don't just do a knee-jerk or a fire brigade approach towards diversification. So it's got to be a step-by-step approach, generally.
Okay. Miriam, people and government interactions, right? Many people would say the government of today doesn't interact as much. Should interactions play a huge part in scoring success of the government?
Absolutely. I think Nigeria has grown. The Nigeria we're seeing today is not the same one from a previous generation. The conversation was very difficult before, and we had a lot of, student protests in a previous era in Nigeria. A lot of people didn't even know what the representatives in the National Assembly looked like. But today we have roundtable discussions with them. We have social media that gives us direct access to them. And sometimes, even if they're not online, the discussions that we have on social media reach them in their offices through other people, other channels, but they still hear about it and they tend to respond back. And so I think it's really important for interaction to be a part of it. Whether you're a president or a governor or a member of the National Assembly, or the State House of Assembly, as long as you hold public office that is elective and you have to account to the people, then interaction is important. As a representative of the people, conversation between the people and the government is important. You cannot know what your people need if you don't have a conversation with them. It is very important to see this very conversational kind of governance going on right now. I've seen a lot of people within the National Assembly. I think in recent times, we've seen people in the National Assembly bring out bills that young people were advocating for or women were advocating for, and they've had to discuss it based on public discourse.
And as it is now, we have some questions off Zoom. So first question, how do young people contest political positions when policies and laws fight against people below 40 contesting for elections? The Not Too Young to Run bill has its own loopholes. Is there a way we can encourage younger people to stand up and contest positions?
Do you want to answer it?
Well, how do we encourage young people? First, it's not about whether you're young or not. There has to be a clear understanding of what you want to do with political power. And for us in Nigeria, we need people who have capacity, who have character, who have competence to do what? To provide excellent public leadership. There's no need running for office if you have no plan on how to take people out of poverty. I think it's very, very important to underscore that. If we deal with that, we need to look at the processes. Today, you need to be a member of a political party to run for office. We've got 18 registered political parties. The second pillar of the Not Too Young to Run bill was independent candidacy. The National Assembly passed it, but the State House of Assemblies didn't pass it. So can we mainstream independent candidacy in our electoral process so it gives young people the opportunity to run if they don't want to be members of political parties? One of the things that we learned from the 2019 elections was even after the age was reduced, and let me use this opportunity to say that only 3 offices were affected by the Not Too Young to Run law. First was the age for the president was reduced from 40 to 35, for House of Reps from 30 to 25, and then for House of Assembly from 30 to 25. The age requirement for the Senate and the governors were retained at 35. So it's important to put this in perspective. And part of our position at the movement is you also need to review that to create more space. But even if you amend the law, the cost of politics is one of the greatest challenges that young people face. A lot of young people couldn't purchase the party nomination forms. Look at Edo and Ondo elections. How much do the major political parties charge people for a piece of paper called party nomination forms? People were paying 22 million, 20 million. Now, for a country where if you look at the median age, you look at our GDP, you look at our life expectancy, you look at unemployment rate, how do you expect? So it appears that public office is for the highest spender and the highest bidder. That is something we need to fix.
Okay, well, what I could pick, you said something as regards political parties not being democratic. Mm-hmm. So in a certain way, does it mean that some of these political parties, when in power, their government is a reflection of what their parties, what their party stands for? Being a political party that brings out a candidate and they don't even have the democratic process within themselves. Do you think it is now tends to reflect on their mode of government?
Structurally, the foundation itself is weak. Forget about political parties are democratic institutions. They are a reflection of a structural deficit that we have. And that is, what is public leadership? What is politics? Politics in Nigeria today is investment, it's business, it's an opportunity to settle inter-elite wars. It's not about service to the people. So when people get into, and all the political parties are all the same, and the only difference is their logo and their names. But they are all the same. That's why they jump ship at will. They move from one party to another, and they are accepted
you know, with arms, full arms and with pomp and pageantry, because they are all the same. And we need to get to a point where our political parties themselves operate as development organizations, because political parties don't just exist for contest for power. They are a platform for aggregation of social interest. How many political parties today aggregate social interest and engage the state or even mobilize people? How many political parties consult their members when their parties are going to select leaders or when they are selecting their candidates? None. The party guidelines, the party constitution, the party bylaws, they are all designed by a cabal within the parties, because the people, the members, no party today, and I say this on authority, no party, particularly the major political parties, with updated, accurate register of members. If you doubt me, go and check. None of them. And what that tells you is the parties themselves and do not exist for the people. They exist for certain individuals who have captured power for their own personal interest and not for the collective interest of the people. And so if you want transformation, we've got to fix politics. We've got to disrupt our political parties. And I encourage young people who are very passionate and determined, go into those parties. That is where the revolution actually should start from.
Okay. So, Mr. Martin, how do you think the synergy between the various layers of government, being the executive, legislation, and judiciary, affect our system?
You still find the kind of presidential interference in who becomes the the Speaker of the House of Reps, the Deputy Speaker, to the Senate President, Deputy Senate President, and all other principal officers that you find. And this automatically entangles them, because it is I who makes you who you are. So you still have to call to me and talk to me and tell me what do what I've told you. So despite the fact that the Constitution has guaranteed that level of separation, you still find the people, the caliber of people who are there, who don't understand why they are there, who don't understand the work they ought to do, still entangling themselves, right? Pardon me. Finding themselves in an entanglement that makes them to continue to make our democracy not to work as it should work.
Okay. Miriam, I would like if you could please state about 2 flaws you think that that Nigerian government have, and
Only 2.
Well, let's leave, because it's an open question, because I'm still gonna, I know you can go all day, but just 2 preferred solutions, or solutions from your perspective on how you think they can be handled.
Wow, that is like a difficult question for me, because on a daily basis we see flaws, within our government. So I don't even know which one to pick from. But I think just based on some of the conversations that we've had today, right? I think institutions don't work. And it's almost in every sense, we need our institutions to work. And the truth is they don't work. We are seeing scandals which explain to us why they don't work. And there's a lot of corruption behind and in front of people, there's a lot of corruption. And even the way corruption is dealt with, is very discouraging. It almost looks as if you can do it and get away with it and nothing is going to happen. For me, I feel there must be harder consequences, more intense consequences for corruption. There has to be a quicker way to deal with it. You find somebody will go to court and they'll be in court for years over a corruption case. By the time the issue is resolved, it's not even relevant anymore. The money can't even be found anymore. There has to be a way where they can quicken the process and the institutions that prosecute corruption.
Okay. Clearly, people say that Nigeria is not working. As of right, the Nigerian government is not working. I would say it is working to a certain degree. I would say it's not working to a certain degree. Yeah. But based off your personal opinions, what do you think is Nigeria? What do you think Nigeria's scorecard is looking like right now? Like on a scale of, let's say, 1 to 10, or should we use 100%? The percentage form. How well? What do you think the scorecard is like?
I think for me, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would honestly say 3.5. And the reason I'm saying this is even if Nigeria works, it only works for a few. The majority of Nigerians, the average Nigerian, is not living a good life. They don't have access to good healthcare. They don't have access to good education. They don't have access to anything that, the government is supposed to provide for. Electricity, what works? There are certain achievements that we can say, different administrations have noted and done. But is Nigeria working for the common man? No. Within the past few years, they've told us that we are the poverty capital of the world. About over 90 million people are living in extreme poverty. Is that a country that works? No. Because we shouldn't be comfortable in a place where people are dying, it's insecure, people are hungry, people don't have medical care, and because some of us are comfortable, we sit back and we think Nigeria is working. If Nigeria is not working for the average man, Nigeria is not working at all. And until these things are fixed in a way that a person is born and from the hospital there's good maternal care, so that because our maternal mortality is very high, until a person is born and they have good medical care from childbirth, they're able to go to school even if they're not rich, they're able to get a good education and have these basic things that make life worth living and comfortable enough to live, then I can't say that Nigeria works. And that's why I have to give it a 3.5. It's a reflection of how Nigeria has been over the past 10, 15, 20 years. And so it's definitely something that I feel like anybody in a leadership position should look at and realize that policies must work for these people. And when they start working for the general public, the average Nigerian, then we can start to say, okay, Nigeria is working.
Okay.
First of all, I would like to go back before, because I was trying to get the name of what the National Assembly does. It's actually the resolution of either the Senate or the House of Representatives. So that's what it's called. Okay. To either summon anybody also. I think you're quite generous with your marks. I would like to be your student. I think Nigeria, to me, is actually below 1%.
Oh, we're in a deficit.
Yes. That's wow. If I were to score Nigeria. Okay, so for example, let's start young people, right? So let's even take the COVID pandemic as an example. Yeah. Young people were supposed to be in school. All over the world, their counterparts are doing online education. What's happening to Nigeria? Students are at home, pupils are at home, tertiary institutions at the most, are still at home. And then look at women. How are women treated in Nigeria? What is the level of justice system for women? We recently carried out a research on rape alone, just rape in Nigeria, and we realized that out of the 74 women that were raped in Nigeria, only 9 convictions were secured. Now, you talk about the aged. How does the government treat its old people? There are millions of Nigerians who are retired and they are in pension. They are on pension, but majority of them haven't received their pension and they don't receive pensions. I can go on and on, So, like the roads, is it electricity? So, at what point are you going to actually rate Nigeria to say we have scored? What indices, on what basis are we going to say Nigeria has improved? Look at the way justice system is done. The justice is for the highest bidder, basically, and it's all about power. So, a woman was hounded in her house some days ago. A governor came to use a mighty power to come and rescue her. So the institutions don't work. It's all about people. When the institutions ought to be the ones to protect you. So it is now about power tussle, about individuals, about personalities. So at the end of the day, what if she didn't have a governor, she didn't know the governor? What if she couldn't reach the governor, or the governor doesn't know her? What if she was just a normal person like me, who can't call anyone? All right. So at the end of the day, you begin to ask the level of rights even in the country. Okay, how do citizens access rights? On a daily basis, people can't report to the police about abuses. They rather report to individuals, the Segalings of our time, and the police is there. You report a matter to the police station and the police tell you, get away, go away, get us fuel, give us this for us to be able to handle your matter. So at what point, on what basis do you want me to rate Nigeria above 1%? When everything that we ought to have used, all the indices that we should use to say, okay, we are doing well in this country, or we can improve here, or we can, they're all failing. So for me, Nigeria is doing less than 1%.
Oh, wow. Mr. Sampson?
No, I completely agree with them. It's just that, yes, Nigeria is not working, but should Nigeria work? The answer is yes. Can it work? Yes, it can work. And that's why over the last couple of minutes, all the discussions here, we've not just, performed diagnostics of our problems, we've also proffered solutions. We've talked about how to make Nigeria work. We've talked about institutions. We've talked about the quality of our politics. We've also talked about, the citizenry, political education, and the need for more organizing. So I completely agree with Martin and Laushi, Mariam, that the country isn't working, but it can work. And it takes this kind of difficult conversations held with those who are in positions of power and really changing their paradigm on leadership. But Nigeria can work and should work. And the responsibility of making Nigeria work is our responsibility. The leaders who are benefiting, and Mariam makes a strong point that the country is working for a microscopic few. Now, what we need to do is to disrupt that so that it can work forward for everybody. And it is possible because other countries have done it.
Okay. Thank you very much, distinguished guests. We really appreciate it. I will be coming to your school so that I can get that score right. I don't think I'm asking to be very deficit. But yeah, thank you very much for your contributions, your words of wisdom. Hopefully, the Nigerians at home will be able to pick up your words and know the ways to apply themselves to the solutions of the country moving forward. And everybody at home, stay tuned. We'll be back again with yet another topic and another set of dignitaries to shed some more light on the state of the country.
The Nigerian health sector has shown adequate response to COVID-19, and in the process, many of its flaws, which many knew internally, were revealed to all externally. How do we ensure that the learnings from the impact of a global pandemic are factored in when it comes to policy formulation and implementation for the health interest of the average Nigerian citizen? What can be done to correct the subdued state of the Nigerian health sector? We have conversations with the Minister of State for Health, Senator Mamora, next on Rubbin Minds.
Yes, well, like you rightly said, you recall that the initial designation given to the coronavirus was novel. That is something new. Before it was pronounced global pandemic, now designated COVID-19. Now, we are integrating beyond the primary health care. Because when you look at the whole of the health system itself, we have a department here in the Federal Ministry of Health that is called Traditional, Complementary, and Alternative Medicine. So that tells you that we're not just looking at what we know in terms of the Western medicine and all that. And just a couple of weeks, some weeks back now, we had an engagement, a Zoom engagement, virtual engagement with the herbal and traditional practitioners, asking them we had an engagement wanting to know what they have, how we can look into it, with a view to having our own homegrown remedy, particularly following from the COVID organics that we had from Madagascar. So it's not right to say that we don't have or we're not looking at our own remedies, because whether we like it or not, the reality still remains that the bulk of our people, particularly in the rural areas, they patronize the traditional mode of treatment. So we're looking at that. Yeah, it's not just the elite that tend to go out to seek Medicare. It's a function of, let's get it clear. When people talk about medical, tourism and all that, my own reaction is that, yes, some other people may be benefiting, some other countries may be benefiting from this, but we also benefited from this in times past. In the 60s, especially the late 50s and early 60s, people were coming in here too. History has it that a lot of members of the royal family from the UAE, what we know as UAE today, from Saudi and what, they were coming in here. It's a matter of, do you have what people want, or can you give them what they require in terms of their care? That is the issue fundamentally. Of course, again, you have to also look at what's the environment like. People want to go to hospital and feel as if they're in 5-star or 7-star hotel. They want to get the services, not just clinical services. They want to get, diagnostic services, laboratory services that are efficient and real. They want to get all that. They want to get the care itself. It's not just providing those services, but with care as well. That is, the attitude of the personnel giving this is also important. So these are some of the areas that are critical that we also need to look. They want to look at it. They want to be in an environment that is even conducive for patient care. So it's so many things rolled into that. But unfortunately, COVID-19 is such that has overwhelmed the health systems of the global community. It doesn't matter whether it's in America, it's in the UK, it's in Africa. It's just that those health systems that were weak inherently, or hitherto now, those are the ones that will definitely be more affected. If you already have, it's like a child that is malnourished. Now, measles now coming upon that child. The child will just trip over. That's just the thing. It's the same thing with COVID-19. The health systems that were weak before, they now have a tendency of now being exposed completely and being more overwhelmed. So that's the situation that we found ourselves with the coming of COVID-19. But like I always say, in every seemingly bad situation, some good can come out of it. And some good is already coming out of our own COVID-19 experience, because we're beginning to build structures, we are beginning to revamp, using your word, the system that hitherto had been, comatose, so to speak. It just reminds me of Animal Farm by George Orwell. All animals are equal, but some are more equal. The truth is that if we continue to say that health is wealth, and we say we believe that you must be healthy to do any other thing, then it means that the health of the people should be given priority. And in so doing, it means also that it's not just about the infrastructure in the health sector that needs to be taken care of. The infrastructure has to be optimal. 2, the workers. It doesn't matter whether they are doctors, nurses, pharmacists, medical laboratories, scientists, name it. Because the health care or patient care is a team event. So all these people who work as health professionals, every one of them is important. So they need to be taken care of in terms of remunerations, in terms of accommodation, in terms of condition of service generally. So, and some of these things have been gradually, addressed. Whether it's an issue of a lack of PPEs or whatever, all these are now being addressed. They are now taking front burner in terms of attention. So these are the things, and that's part of the good that's coming out of this experience. So we need to, pay attention to the welfare of all the members of that health care team in terms of everything, salaries, remunerations, opportunities, and what have you. Because these are the things that will motivate them to give their best in the circumstance. Now, of course, we have put in place now insurance scheme, for health workers, particularly those in the front line. Well, it has not been perfect, but then I think it's been fair. It's been fair enough. We're a little bit comfortable by the strike action that took place a short while ago. But that has since been resolved, and we're moving on to. We just felt that that wasn't. We quite understand the circumstance and all that, but we just felt that we as those that professionals in the health sector whose primary duty is to save lives, and secondarily to reduce pain and discomfort to patients. That's the primary core, and we, as much as possible, must ensure that calling of being a caregiver, particularly as doctors, should always come first. But then this issues, and of course not entirely. You cannot say that this is something happening in Nigeria. It's happening even in some other countries, even in Africa and beyond. So what we are saying that we've got over that now, and we are using that experience to guide us so that we can pay more attention to the demands which are legitimate of the health workers. So these are some of the, and of course it's also important to say this. Oftentimes, a lot of things that happen in the health sector, they are not primarily a problem of the health sector. Take, for example, you go to a center that does not have water. It's not Ministry of Health that gives water. These are some of the things that should be taken for granted. And potable water provision goes a long way to reduce the disease burden. A lot of things, if people talk of cholera, talk of typhoid, these are born, right? You come from contaminated water. So if you have potable water that people have access to, you will reduce that burden. And of course, the other thing is we need to maximize what is available. Maybe a little over average. Yes, we can do better. That's the truth. We can do better, and we will do better.
And with that, we'll tell you good day. My name is Sheawolo. This is the Nigerian Symposium for Young and Emerging Leaders on Rubbin Minds. Do have a great day.